Today we're going to show you how to fill grain. This is a mahogany Les Paul, mahogany Les Paul neck and body. This is the Les Paul that I built in the videos. I've got the top and the fretboard all taped off. And what I'm going to do is use a brown, this Dark Mission brown, and this Wonder Fill from Rockler, and fill the grain here so I can get a nice smooth coat. If you don't use grain filler on an open pore wood, you get a kind of bumpy surface as the finish kind of dives into the grooves. This will help keep a nice smooth surface. So first things first is you're going to need a couple of rags, a wet rag. I've been using water-based filler in this jar. The key to doing this is that you make enough that if you screw up, you got more left that to go back and fill it in. So what I'm going to do is mix some of the Wonder Fill and a tad little bit of brown into this, and then go ahead and start wiping it on. So make sure you got gloves, make sure your guitar is nice and sanded down. This is sanded down to 400. Make sure it's taped off, and you're ready to go then. So getting the color right here is a tad bit tricky with the right consistency. So I'm going to take a little bit of the red oak, add a little bit of Dark Mission brown here, add some water, and begin to mix it around. This is a back and forth process to get it correct, where I'll add a little bit more filler, a little bit more water, a little bit more brown to get the right color. Here it turns a little bit green. I'm going to test it on a piece of scrap, see what it looks like. Not 100% happy with the coloring here, so I'm going to add a little bit more brown. You can also just buy the brown wood filler, but I have oak, so I just use the colors that I've got. So the consistency is what you're looking for in the paste. You don't want it too thick and you don't want it too runny. It's kind of a perfect mix. As you go back and forth, you'll know what the right consistency is. You don't want it too runny, but you want it kind of thick milkish. And here I'm going to test it on the last bit of scrap, and it's looking pretty good here. So that's the right coloring, nice dark brown. Go ahead and apply it here. So when I apply it, I get the new rag, and I circle back and forth to get this back into the grain. And you really want to go across the grain here to make sure it sits in correctly. And again, this is just a application process where you're going back and forth and rubbing it in across the body to get it to fit in all the pores. And just go back and forth across the body here and make sure it is applying correctly, making sure it looks like you've got all the pores filled, and then just back and forth. Now I'm going to take the wet rag and wipe off some of the excess. And this is key, that if you leave too much on the wood, you're going to end up sanding forever later, because the filler dries hard. And you want to make sure you're just getting in the pore and not too much on the wood. So now we're going to apply this on the side. And again, you're just going to keep turning the body, making sure the filler is sitting in the right spots. You're going to do the neck, do the sides. You're just going to let it sit in the right spots, make sure it's actually soaking in, and you're going to get that wet cloth then again at the end and wipe off the excess so you don't really get it to build, that it really is sitting in the pores and not on the wood itself. So then after you let this dry for about 24 hours, you go back and start to sand this off. What you're doing is you're sanding off the filler that's sitting on top of the wood versus in the pore. And this is actually a pretty long process to get the guitar body then cleaned up. Here this is a 400 grit
piece of sandpaper on my sanding disc. I'm just going back and forth and getting all of the excess filler off the body. You're going to sand the sides again. You're going to move to the neck. You'll get all the nooks and crannies off. And then here's the best example of what this looks like. This is with the filler on. And I'm going to get the 400 grit and sand this off. And you can see I'm taking off that top layer of filler and I've got the wood left. And I'm just going back and forth and getting this all cleaned up, making sure it looks proper. So we'll speed this up to keep moving. And so after a couple of minutes here, you can see, filler and then sand it off. And you've got the filler just in the pores. So next we're going to take the tape off from the top and the sides. We're going to take this razor blade here with the tape on it, and we're going to go back and scrape the binding and get the binding clean from any spots that it actually leaked underneath the tape. So as much as that tape is great to have on the body, you still get a little bit of leakage, so you got to clean that up before you do anything else. So using filler is a lot of work. All in, I probably got about 2 hours into this process, and I cut a lot of this video out. But it's a lot of back and forth, cleaning, making sure you don't have the filler sitting on top of the wood, but in the pour, and then going back and cleaning up the guitar body. So it's definitely a longer process to use filler, but you're going to get a nice mirror finish on the guitar when you're all set.